Hello and welcome to Video Game Hangover. I'm Randy Dickinson and I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Hey, I'm DJ Ross. I'm in Mountain View, California.
Every week on Video Game Hangover, we talk about the games that have been keeping us up at night. This week we're playing Genshin Impact. Did I say that right?
That sounds good to me.
All right, cool.
Impact, I believe it's...
that wasn't the part I was worried about.
Okay, all right.
Yep. Is it GIF or GIF?
No, don't even start.
No. Plus, we're going to dip back into Super Mario 3D All-Stars with Super Mario 64 and Super Mario Sunshine.
Yay!
All the Super Marios.
Mario games.
Many.
Oh, man. I did not play the Mario 35. That's what I was going to do this weekend, and then I completely forgot.
Yeah.
Did you get to try that out?
I did not. No, we had a couple folks in our Discord who were very enthusiastic, and one who was not so enthusiastic about Mario 35. And I was like, I gotta check that out for myself. But no, I didn't get any time with it because I can't stop playing Genshin Impact.
Oh, is that so? Okay. I was gonna say, you want to just talk about Mario 35 and pretend we played it? We could make that whole thing. Maybe not. I'll just put it on my list for next time.
No, that's not good. I've never had to do that. It's
no?
Like doing a book report on a book you've not read. No.
That was the whole theme last week, I thought.
Talking about games we haven't played.
Yeah. Oh, no. So that's what's going to be this week's show. You're supposed to tell me about Final Fantasy 16.
I was supposed to sort of do a synopsis of, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I did.
Well, just tell me about Genshin Impact and you can change all the names to famous Final Fantasy characters. Or that's not how it works. I don't know what I'm talking about.
No, so I'm not prepared to talk about Final Fantasy, and it would probably be more amusing to not be prepared. But no, I'm not good at improv.
Okay, well, we'll table it for now.
Yeah.
Sorry, everybody who was looking forward to getting the first, exclusive scoop on new Final Fantasy 16 info.
Save it for our year-end show, our Drunktacular.
There you go.
Consume some adult beverages and then attempt to summarize Final Fantasy for everyone.
The year-end show cannot get here soon enough. I think it goes without saying everybody is just like, I want to hibernate until 2021.
Yeah.
Let's just skip the next few months.
It's a lot of pressure for 2021, though. I really feel like there is sort of a naive belief that the clock is going to tick over to 2021 and all of our issues and worries will be solved.
I keep saying to people, it's either going to get better or it's going to get way worse. So let's not think about it.
It's a very very scientific approach to this, DJ. It could go one of two ways, guys.
Well, I mean, I don't want to get into it because it's just going to make me miserable. But
yeah. We're not here to do that. We're here to be just positive rays of sunshine in everyone's life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, positivity.
Yeah.
Video games. Just a beacon of whatever.
Yep.
A positive beacon of whatever in these unprecedented times.
Now more than ever.
I hear I don't know if it's accurate to say that pre-orders of the new consoles are way up because they all sold out immediately, it sounds like. But it sounds like, and this is like completely anecdotal, like several degrees removed from myself at this point. I shouldn't even be relaying this back. But it just sounds like there are a lot of people who are getting into, who are like buying these things as their first console, more or less. They're just like, now it seems like a good time to just go all in on video games.
Just people spending much more time at home and things like that. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And like we saw a lot of that, I think, with, the Switch earlier this year, and a lot of people jumping on Animal Crossing as their first their Animal Crossing game.
Yeah.
But
game.
Exactly. I guess it just follows that after just a summer of being stuck at home, maybe people are looking for the next shiny new thing in video game entertainment.
Yeah, I think it's quite a lot of kind of the entertainment world has shifted to, what can I do in my house? So movie theaters are in a rough state right now, but the folks who make projectors and blow up screens for your backyard are making tons of money. So it's interesting how these things have kind of pivoted, and we're all looking for stuff to do around the house now.
Yeah.
And the return of drive-in movie theaters.
Have you done the drive-in thing yet?
I have not. No, we have a couple of I've heard good ones near us, but unfortunately have not made the trek out to do that.
No, I heard they're coming back because that's kind of all you can do if you want to go see a movie. But I've not really investigated into it. Yeah. I can't imagine Christopher Nolan would agree to screen Tenet at a drive-in movie theater. I'm sure that's not the
he didn't. That's a headline. I remember reading that. Yeah, that he was not. Really? He was not down with that. Yeah.
Oh, that guy.
Oh, that would be the one I would want to see too. So
that was other movies. I can wait on. Yeah. Somehow I managed to avoid spoilers, even though it's been I don't know, it's been a while at this point since that came out. But
are you old enough to have been to a drive-in at some point in your life?
I feel like I had the opportunity. I don't know if there was a cutoff where they're like, no more drive-in theaters.
Well, I've heard there's more in California, in sunny states, essentially in warm weather states, that they have sort of lived a bit longer than they did here in the Northeast, because they are few and far between in the Northeast, and there used to be tons of them. But the fact that you really can only operate, in Connecticut, where I grew up, for 4 months out of the year makes it tough to run a business that way, I'm sure.
I've never been to one, to answer your question.
Oh, okay.
Because I was just like, why, given the option to go to a regular movie theater versus a drive-in theater, would you go to the drive-in? Unless you're just really into that experience.
For us, when I was a kid, it was I was a child of divorce. Both parents remarried. So when I was at my dad's house as a kid, there were 5 kids because his new wife had 3 kids and I had me and my brother. And the only way to sort of, economically take everybody out for an evening's worth of entertainment was to put everybody in the car. And, you could do $20 for a carload of kids and watch a couple of movies and keep everybody kind of relatively occupied for 4 to 5 hours.
Back then, the popcorn was 5 cents a barrel or whatever.
Just a nickel. Tub. They just wheel a wheelbarrow right over to your car.
Yeah.
But no, that was a good time. I remember seeing Ghostbusters. I remember seeing Footloose on a drive-in movie theater screen. I think we saw one of the Star Wars movies, maybe Jedi. I have relatively fond memories of that experience as a kid. It's cool that is sort of on the rise again. I'm all over the place with my tangents about movie theaters, but when I was in college, I was a movie theater projectionist at just an indoor movie theater. And they were looking for folks to volunteer at the Hartford Drive-In, which in Hartford, Connecticut was kind of the last drive-in for 300 miles. It had been continuously operated every summer for I forget how many years. And they were running it as a nonprofit because, it's probably hard to make money on a drive-in movie theater in Connecticut. So they were looking for projectionists to go volunteer at the drive-in movie theater to, work for free essentially, but just to make sure that the projectors still ran and movies were still shown. So I got a chance to do that in college. So I got to work at a drive-in movie theater briefly, for free, but it was all with the, the goal of keeping this thing up and running for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of neat.
Kind of different.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a fun experience. And those machines, the projectors, everything's digital projections now. I probably would not have a clue how to run them, but these were
just
actual...
push a button.
Right, exactly. Sure. These were actual film projectors that you had to sort of thread up and run together, and you could do the crossover between the 2 prints and stuff like that. And it was crazy and complex, and those machines were 100 years old.
On them.
Yeah.
Man, back then you couldn't even plug in your GameCube or whatever and play Smash Bros. On the movie screen.
You could not. No, that was not an option at that point in my career. That's cool though.
That is pretty cool. I see pictures of people doing that on social media, and I'm just like, how do you have these connections with movie theaters where you can just bring in your console and play them? I guess now would be the time though. You gotta know somebody who's just please somebody rent out our theater for the evening.
They're not turning away business. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Hmm.
Yeah, the little movie theater in downtown Harrisburg at the Midtown Cinema is only open for like special occasions. You can book a theater for you and 9 friends, and they'll run whatever movie you want to watch and make you popcorn and stuff like that.
Wow.
But you can't like go in and buy a ticket to a first run movie, but you can sort of like book an appointment for you and your buddies to mask up and go watch whatever you want to watch. And I was like,
Do you
oh,
like
that's
bring
super
in
cool
a Blu-ray or something?
I think they have a list of things that they can sort of download and stream for you.
Oh.
But they have other movies available. Yeah, I was because it's Halloween. I love scary movies. I was like, geez, can I get a bunch of my friends together to put on masks and sit in different corners of the movie theater to watch a couple of scary movies?
Mm-hmm.
That would be a fun thing. I'd be all over that.
I was just wondering what the logistics around something like that would be. Like, why couldn't you, like, why aren't they offering to let people come in and just rent out the theater and hook up their Xbox or something and just have a giant Halo match or Apex or whatever the kids are playing these days?
Yeah, I don't know. I know that they're pretty techie over there, and they've got kind of very cool, very modern projectors. So I imagine that's definitely possible.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you live in central Pennsylvania and that sounds like fun to you, hit up the Midtown Cinema and make sure you invite me.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Good. Good to add that in on that. I just feel like, that's got to be what the projectionists are doing after hours anyway, right? They're just like, oh, when will all these customers leave so we can just, clean out the theater and do some death matching or whatever.
Exactly. I mean, that's what I would do.
Yeah. I was going to say, is that just me? No.
Yeah. That was not an option. The technology did not exist. But, here in 2020, that's probably the ray of sunshine in the lives of movie theater employees right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. The closest thing I was gonna say I've never played a game in a movie theater screen, but they did those, like, what was it, Uncharted 3? They did some theater events before that game came out, and I went to one of those and did very, very poorly at some Uncharted 3 deathmatch.
Me as well. Yep. Yeah.
Probably not my first pick. I was gonna play any game on a movie theater screen, but I guess it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Speaking of being a ray of sunshine in people's lives.
Yeah.
Super Mario Sunshine.
Super Mario. I got it. Yep. Man. Maybe I should start this out talking about Super Mario 64.
Sure.
So a couple weeks ago, whenever this Super Mario 3D All-Stars collection came out, my plan was to jump immediately into Mario Sunshine. Just because out of the 3 games on this thing, that is the one that I by far spent the least time with. Mm-hmm. The others being Mario 64 and Mario Galaxy, which you talked about a couple weeks ago. And I know Mario Sunshine doesn't have the greatest reputation among Mario games.
It seems very polarizing.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's I don't know if anybody loves Mario Sunshine. It's just, it feels like, I don't know, people either really hate it or they're just like, hey, it's worth giving a second look now. It's a little farther from release. But I can't really think of anybody who is like staunchly defending this game as an amazing Mario game. But I'm kind of in the camp where, first of all, I didn't play it very much when it came out, but I feel like for whatever reason I didn't play it. I don't know if that was just there are other more interesting games that I was more interested in playing at the time, but I just felt like I would like to give that game another shot and see if I was missing out on something there. So that was something I was really looking forward to in this collection. But as soon as I got it downloaded on my Switch and got it loaded up, I could not help myself just loading up Mario 64 and playing that for a little while because I just wanted to see what that's like nowadays. Because I'm a huge Mario 64 fan, and I think this is probably the first time I've really played it since they re-released it on the DS. I think it's a launch game.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah,
which is actually pretty incredible. At that point, they were able to squeeze Mario 64 onto a little handheld.
Yeah,
but that game, or that specific version of it, it wasn't the best because you had to use either the D-pad or the touchscreen to control, and that game was all about like 360-degree analog movement and like really precision movements on top of that. So neither of those options were great for actually successfully playing that game. So it's been a while, and I was really excited to revisit this game, even just for a minute, even if it was just on my way to play Mario Sunshine. But lo and behold, I ended up just spending way, way more time in Mario 64 than I intended. This is kind of how I expected it to go, but I was just, allowing myself to get caught up in it. And I think it's still like super fun. Do I need to explain what Mario 64 is to people? Is that worth doing?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's
everybody generally knows what it is.
The princess and
somebody. Yeah. I wonder who it was.
Yeah.
It's I guess it's worth, I don't know. I've spent a lot of time playing this, just kind of reflecting on kind of the reaction to this game when it came out, because when it came out, it was just mind-blowing, because it was like one of the first really like almost open world 3D games. The 3D was really good. It was such a departure for Mario, who had been, I mean, there hadn't really been 3D consoles up until this point, so he was obviously just stuck in these 2D platforming worlds. But it just felt so revolutionary, like not just the fact that it was all in 3D, but you had this wacky N64 controller, which had like a little joystick in the middle, and you had kind of like these 4 buttons to control the camera, which was a completely new concept in video games. There was just a lot going on.
Sort of the Y-shaped controller that I remember playing.
Yeah.
Perfect Darkon. Yeah.
Yeah, the claw or whatever. I don't even... do people call it the claw? I always just thought of it. It just looks like a big, weird trident of a controller.
I've never heard of that. But yeah, it's... it is odd. Yeah, it's a strange... it was the first time I remember there being kind of like a shoulder button on a controller as well.
Oh,
it had kind of a trigger on the front of it, and I had not played a controller. You played with a controller up to that point that had that built into it.
Yeah, man, the controller is such a mess, but I love it, because they obviously were just like, didn't quite know where to put the analog stick, but it was such a, it was the big innovation on that thing, so why not put it front and center, I guess. And then they're just like, you can hold the controller this way, you can hold the center prong of it, or you can just hold the outer prongs, or
it was
the grips
literally
or whatever.
Front and center. It was, it was exactly that, yeah.
Yeah, it was so weird. And then just, I guess Sony came along, and they're like, we'll just put an analog stick here. And we're like, oh, that makes a lot more sense. But I digress. Mario 64, so I think I still had a really great time playing it. The version in this collection is more or less just a straight port of it from the N64. They didn't like up-res it, or I mean, they did up-res it, so it's now in HD on your screen or on your Switch. But that's pretty much all they did. It's definitely not a remaster or anything in any way. It still uses the same N64 models. I think there might have been some texture work, like some texture improvements, but you're not going to be confusing this with a brand new game that just came out. You're not going to be mistaking it for Super Mario Odyssey or even Sunshine, really.
Yeah, it certainly looks the roughest when they show the trailers for the 3D collection. You can always sort of tell which screenshots came from from Super Mario 3D, because it's like, oh, geez, that doesn't look good at all.
Yeah. And I have to say, I kind of I still really enjoy the look. I think a lot of that's a nostalgia thing. I don't think it looks terrible. It just looks like older than the other games on the collection. The thing that does feel antiquated, though, is definitely, the camera. And I think this is the thing that I've seen people complain the most about since this has been out. But it's like a combination of the camera not really functioning the same way as a modern 3D camera, because originally it was on these 4 buttons instead of a separate stick. So it doesn't even if you want to kind of mentally map those 4 buttons into rotating a camera on an analog stick, it doesn't quite work that way. So that takes a little readjusting too. And the other factor is just that I don't know if the camera in Mario 64 was ever really very good. sort of by virtue of just being the first or one of the first 3D cameras like this, it just behaves in weird ways, which are not how modern cameras kind of not the direction they went in.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of this weird artifact, but because it's still it like doesn't work significantly worse than it did back on the N64, I'm kind of okay with it.
Yeah.
It's really weird because I think all the friction that I'm running into playing this game, and it's not like none of these are game breakers in any way. I'm still having a great time with it, but it just comes from the fact that I have been playing 3D games developed, over the last 24 years since this game came out, that I've just been refining sort of like 3D analog movement and 3D camera control since then, that are not necessarily, I mean, they are refined quite a bit, but, and I guess they are better to an extent, but I think like Mario 64 specifically it was like so much about like analog movement and this very specific way the camera behaved. It like worked really well on an N64 controller, on that weird controller that doesn't quite translate 100% to like the Switch controller or the Joy-Cons or whatever third-party controller you have plugged into the Switch.
Mm-hmm.
And that's strange because it just feels like the game doesn't quite work as well because it's on a better controller now. So for instance, one of the things I've run into is like in Mario 64 in this version, it feels like you have like the movement is slightly less precise, but I think it's because that original N64 analog stick had so much more tension than like a modern, like a DualShock 4 or a Joy-Con. Because when the game came out, they made so much hype about, oh look, not only can you like steer Mario 360 degrees around, but if you just like tilt very slightly forward on the stick, he will like tiptoe, and eventually as you keep tilting it, he will like start walking faster and faster, and eventually he just breaks out into a full run. And that I feel like there are just so many more degrees of precision there than you would find in, I don't know, I don't remember how many kind of movement options you have in Mario Odyssey, but certainly it felt like that was much more of a fixation in the design of this game than you would find in like a 3D platformer design today.
Oh, interesting.
So I find that like steering Mario around with the Joy-Cons where the stick is a little looser, it just feels like you just have to be that much more careful steering him, because there are sections where either you have to tiptoe past an enemy because they're sleeping or something, you don't want to wake them up, or you have to steer him across a very narrow plank across a gap. And now those moments are just very nerve-wracking because the stick is so much more sensitive now. You really have to just very finely tune your movements so you actually maintain that tiptoe or get him to steer in a straight line across this plank so you don't plummet off the edge.
Yeah. And are you using the Joy-Con, or are you using like, you don't have a Pro controller, right? So
no, I'm using this goofy like third party. I think it's a Hori or a, what is this? No, it is a Hori controller. It's the one I use for Animal Crossing because it has turbo buttons on it. The sticks they're fine. They're not the best analog sticks in the world, but they're not the N64 analog stick, which I think is just throwing me a little bit the way it handles.
Right.
Because the movement in 64 has such a specific feel back on the, like when it originally came out. And just even playing it or like playing any N64 game, I think to some extent, on something other than that weird N64 controller takes a lot of getting used to. Like when, when Perfect Dark got re-released on the 360, and you just played it on a regular 360 controller. That was so weird for me. I was just like, where do all the buttons go now?
Yeah.
So it's taken a little bit of adjusting to get back into playing Mario 64, but for the most part, it's still I think it's still a really terrific game. I really love the level design and the objective design. I think it's really good. There's just the right balance of kind of exploration and platforming that keeps everything really interesting and challenging. So I'm very pleased at how well it's held up.
Cool. Yeah, it is. surprising how long it took developers to sort of figure out how to get the camera thing right. Because it's rare now to play games where you have camera issues. Scully last week notwithstanding. But like prior to that, I don't remember the last time I bitched about a video game having a horrible camera on the show. So, you know, fortunately that problem has more or less been abated. But I remember playing through, you know, Mario games and Perfect Dark and on other consoles playing through Siphon Filter and Medieval and games like that, and just struggling to figure out where to put that camera and to keep it in one place long enough to be able to figure out where I was going or what I was doing, or to not get killed because the camera dipped behind a tree while I was trying to fight an enemy. And there were years and years in so many video games that probably could have been and should have been better if you know, developers could just figure out how to get the camera to work right a little quicker. It was definitely a learning process.
I kept thinking as I was playing this, because like the camera being on 4 buttons is so awkward, and in retrospect, having just a second stick to control the camera seems so obvious. I'm just like, why didn't they realize that after, you know, just hours of playing this game, that they should just have an analog stick to control the camera? And then I just realized, it's because they were still just like this, like the one analog stick was still just the major revolution on this thing. They were still like figuring out how that works.
We're still 5 years away from putting a second one on there.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy. I wonder if it did occur to anybody at the time, or they just thought the camera buttons were the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, we just think of all the PSP and Nintendo DS games that could have been and should have been better if a second stick was on them.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to use the face buttons to control a camera. That's just horrible.
I remember even when the first DualShock came out, that and it had the camera stick, that people didn't even use it for camera control right away. I don't think it was like used for other stuff. Weird. But anyway, yeah, still really enjoying Mario 64.
Good.
I like I said, I don't mind the aesthetics. I don't know if I would have loved if they had like fully remastered everything. Like, I was a little nervous before we knew exactly what this package was going to be, whether it was going to be a full like HD remake or just a port, kind of like how it ended up being. Mm-hmm. Because I think I would kind of miss it if I loaded up Mario 64 and he just looked like the character model from Super Mario Odyssey. I think it'd be kind of weird. Maybe that's just me.
Yeah. So there's a charm to its sort of appearance. Yeah.
Yeah. Like if I went back and played Mario, I don't know, Super Mario World or Super Mario 3, going back even farther, and it just looked like one of the new Super Mario Brothers games, like, you know, quote unquote new Super Mario Brothers with that weird, really just plasticky look, I think I'd be kind of like, oh, what is this? What happened to the other game that I was into? But anyway, so Mario 64, I'm as bare bones as this port ended up being. I'm pretty happy with it. I'm dealing with the weird analog stick and camera control issues.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the downside to going the direction that Nintendo did, where it's just an emulator, right, that runs on the Switch, and it's running kind of old versions of these games. Mm-hmm. And there's some concessions that have been made for being able to, you know, save to a memory card and things like that, but not a lot of modernization has happened to these video games. So it's, that's the plus and the downside to that, going that path is that, yeah, it feels like, you know, you boot this thing up and you're like, oh, it's just the game. Yeah. I think, you know, if you're going to do a 35th anniversary collection of 3D Mario games, like there should be more stuff in this package, right? It should feel a little more polished, a little more robust. And it's really just 3 video games and 3 soundtracks.
The biggest disappointment to me, I think, is it's like, really, this is not even an issue. Like, I don't mind, but it would have been nice, is it's not even widescreen. It's still in the old aspect ratio, so I guess there are just bars on either side when you're playing it.
Oh, really?
Which is like, was fine. That would have been a whole lot of extra consideration in porting this thing, but it seems like if there was just going to be one thing they could do, just, I don't know, just do that. And then there's Mario Sunshine. I finally got around to it after dragging myself away from 64. after however many stars. And it's still it's more or less how I remember. It feels a lot like it's trying to be like the next step from Mario 64. And I don't want to like right off the bat say I hate it, because that's not true. But I think like immediately this game has a lot that's kind of working against it for me personally. And the major issue is I just don't like the fact that you have this water backpack the whole time. So with that being kind of the central conceit of this game, I don't know if it will ever be possible for me to love this game as much as like Mario 64 or Galaxy or Odyssey. Because it feels like almost like you're not really playing a Mario game. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because it changes his kind of move mechanics, right? I mean, you're not doing your sort of traditional collection of Mario running and jumping. It's a lot of your movement through the world hinges on using the Flood backpack, right?
Yeah. So just in case you haven't heard of this, Mario in this game has this backpack with basically just a big spray hose on top of it. And you're on this island that has been covered in like graffiti and mud and slime all over the place. So in a lot of the levels, they're kind of like designed like Mario levels where there's a lot of interesting platforming happening, but there's also these areas of slime that you just need to clean up using the Flood backpack, which is just weird. It just doesn't feel like a Mario game to me. It feels a lot like Yoshi's Island, which everybody loves, but I think for kind of the same reasons, I've just never been able to think of it as a true Mario game, because you are kind of like, I mean, you're controlling Yoshi, which, I don't know, I'm not going to get hung up on that fact, like, oh, you must be controlling Mario for it to be a Mario game. And you're doing a lot of like platforming. What's
your problem with Yoshi, DJ?
Yeah. I mean, I have other issues with Yoshi that I don't want to get into. But, in that game, you've got like the whole like weird egg mechanic.
Yep.
And it's so central to that game. It just feels like I don't know, just another style of game. This is all weird because I'm a huge fan of Mario 2, where you're like picking vegetables out of the ground and throwing it at enemies, which is very different than any other Mario game. Somehow that's okay, but
throwing carrots around.
Yeah, but the like shooting eggs at stuff and like spraying stuff with water, I don't know. Aside from that, though, I feel like it's all right. The platforming doesn't feel quite as good as Mario 64. In fact, it feels a little bit a little loose somehow. I don't know if that is how much of that was in the original game, or if it's just kind of a result of playing this on like new hardware.
Right.
But it just doesn't feel as good as Mario 64 or even what I remember of Mario Galaxy and Mario Odyssey, especially. Like there are these segments in between kind of the main levels, or sometimes within the main levels, where you don't have the Flood backpack anymore, and it's more of just an abstract platforming stage. It kind of reminds me of something out of like Super Mario 3D Land, where it's just like big colorful blocks floating in space.
Oh, okay, cool.
And those sections, at first I'm just like, oh man, this is what I want. This is like the true Mario is here. None of that Flood nonsense. And the controls just feel like super slippery, and the camera is still weird somehow.
Oh.
Where I would just be like missing jumps all over the place. It's just, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what the deal with this game is. So I'm still continuing to play it. I'll dip into it once in a while. It's definitely not blowing me away like, I was able to immediately jump back into Mario 64, and I imagine Galaxy will go the same way. But there's just something about it that just feels a little off to me the whole time I'm playing.
Yeah, I played some of Sunshine on the GameCube when it first came out, and I was not aware of this game being kind of as divisive as it is. So yeah, I don't know. It didn't do a lot for me at the time that I played it. It didn't, like you said, it didn't sort of like feel like a Mario game in the traditional sense. It didn't push that button for me. So I don't think I finished it at the time. So my sort of intent with this 3D All-Stars thing is like, well, I can finally finish Sunshine. And it's interesting to sort of like flash forward all these years and get kind of all this background information on, where this game sort of fit in the history of Mario and what the reception to it at the time was. And I think it's a lot of journalists kind of reflecting on it, going, is it better or worse than you remember? So yeah, it's been kind of interesting to sort of have the opportunity to kind of reconsume Sunshine upon its re-release in 2020.
Yeah. Oh, it's weird. Yeah. I'm just having the same kind of lukewarm reaction to it as when I forget when I made an attempt at this. It was like way after it came out on GameCube, probably like 5 or 6 years after. But yeah, it's just the same thing is happening again. There are just other games I'd rather be playing. Some of them on the same collection, while this game is staring me in the face.
Excellent. Well, that's fair. Yeah, and I've not played 64 at all, so I do need to get to that at some point.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear what you think of that whenever you do get around to it. It's much more like, it feels much more challenging, and I think that is just a product of it coming out when it did.
Yeah.
Than more recent Mario games, but man, the platforming in that game is hard to top, I feel like, especially in the Bowser stages where it's a lot more about just, jumping over weird obstacles. It's just like, I feel like the Bowser stages are like directly inspired like Ninja Warrior and those game shows where they're just running on top of stuff.
Oh, excellent.
It was really good.
Yeah. I think it's part of my sort of trepidation with it is knowing that it's very much a product of that time when video games kind of came with the base expectation that they would be very difficult.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I don't know. I bounce off games like that pretty quickly. I just don't have the patience to tolerate that. I want to play the new Crash Bandicoot. They finally made a fourth Crash game, and it came out last week, and it's gotten pretty good reviews. I like platformers in general, but everything I read about it is like, this is a very hard game. This is a surprisingly hard game, sort of in the vein of kind of its predecessors. And I was like, okay, well, cool that they made a game that's sort of reflective of, and sort of on par in terms of difficulty to the original Crash games. But, where's my Switch for 2020 accessibility? Where's baby mode?
Where's the mode where they just like pave in or fill in all the gaps in the
right,
the
exactly. So I could just sort of run through it in a straight line. Yeah, I want a little challenge. I don't want it handed to me, but I don't have the patience to sort of restart, lather, rinse, repeat, restart over and over and over again on these levels. It's just, again, I'm going to end up with the impression that there are other games I would much rather be spending my time with.
Did you like those original Crash games? Like, did you play Crash 1?
I've never played the originals, no.
Oh, really? So wait, what is your history of Crash then? Why are you just looking forward to a new platformer?
Yeah, just looking forward to a new platformer. The fact that they, somebody is making games like this now. So yeah, I like all the games that sort of came out around Crash at the time. Certainly the Spyro games and Ratchet and Clank and all that other stuff. I love those games. And just never got to never got to Crash Bandicoot for some reason. So I felt like when they released 4, this would be my in. I could start here and maybe sort of reverse engineer my way back to the original trilogy. But I keep hearing it's real difficult, and I'm not sure if I want to spend my money on that.
Huh. I've never been a huge fan of Crash, and admittedly, I don't have a lot of experience playing these games. Like, I think I only played the first one, but I remember thinking like, this is not great. It just feels like, when they're like, hey man, sorry kids, we couldn't get you the N64 or whatever, but we've got PlayStation, we got Crash. That's almost the same thing, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, nah, rather be playing Mario.
Yeah, and I mean, I have Mario 64 now. I might as well just, if I'm going to throw myself at a tougher kind of classic video platformer game, maybe this is the way to approach it.
Yeah, there you go. That's the right attitude.
Yeah, play the games you got before you get more games.
Yes, well that is also good. So man, I wish I could just come in and be like, oh yeah, Mario Sunshine, that's great. Everybody, take another look. But a little more hesitant to make that recommendation.
Yeah, and that's not one of those things you could sort of polish with a good kind of modernization or an update or an HD remaster. It's a core function of the game, the Flood backpack. So yeah, it's not like you can tweak that or adjust that or change that or put a quality of life kind of improvement on that. That is the game. You can't take that out of it. So yeah, it is always destined to sort of be settled to that.
And I kind of expect that they just decided like, hey, we want to make a game where you have this weird mechanic and that's going to be the whole thing. I just don't really, I don't know, just not a great fit for a Mario game. Like maybe this should have been a Luigi game because he's always the one. He's got the vacuum backpack or whatever. That seems like
Luigi
this should be
loves
his
the
thing.
backpacks.
Oh, I don't know.
Well,
anyway,
cool.
Yeah. So far, 2 out of 3, not bad.
Yeah, definitely.
2.5 out of 3. I'm not writing this off completely just yet.
So I played Genshin Impact this weekend. I
played some of this.
Cool. So a little background for our listeners. This is kind of an interesting bit of an experiment here. This is a console game, essentially. This is a sort of a beautiful kind of Breath of the Wild inspired video game that has what feels like kind of AAA production values, but is a free-to-play gacha game like, you would play on your cell phone.
Yeah. And you can play this on your phone, which is also just amazing.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, I keep reading sort of like available on PlayStation 4 and Android, and I'm like, what? Who's playing this on their phone?
I've heard the phone version is actually pretty good, but I have not spent any time with it, so I can't speak to it.
But yeah, I think the thing that is, I sort of downloaded it as this kind of interesting experiment. It's free to play. Might as well jump in and see if I can, hang in there for a little while before they start asking me for my credit card number.
Yeah.
It has sort of been quite polarizing when it was first announced and shown. It looks highly derivative of Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, this is a lot. Yeah, they really pretty brazenly borrowed ideas from that game.
And not just sort of in aesthetic, but in structure, in mechanic. It is very, very reminiscent of reminiscent is a generous word. Of Breath of the Wild. But yeah, so it's free to play, free to hop into. You can play for a while, and I put quite a few hours into it before I ever got to anything that sort of felt like if I really wanted to sort of progress from this point, I'm going to have to start spending money on this. And the place where you start spending money in the game is to do kind of casino pulls, do slot machine pulls on randomly selected new characters.
Gotta do some pulls.
Gotta do some pulls, yeah. And the game does give you, over time, it gives you some of the currency that you need to be able to sort of do some pulls, but it's not enough. And if you want the really good characters, and the game gives you 4 to start with, and there's 13, I think, available. So if you want some of those 9 other ones, you got to start spending some real money on them.
Are all the other characters just through the gacha pulls?
That is my understanding of it so far.
Oh, man. Okay. I have not played a whole lot of this. I think I just finished the prologue chapter. So I got the 4th character.
Oh, okay.
And now they're just like, well, your level isn't high enough. So go and, level up and do stuff. Yeah. That's sort of about where I am. And I have not really. It definitely feels like I can still progress. And I haven't had a lot of issue without having done any pulls so far. So I'm just
there's definitely quite a bit more that you can do, but you will get to a point where your kind of mission list, you have in your menu you have a list of objectives of missions and tasks you're trying to accomplish for other people, and you'll get to the point where they all say you must be level 15. We strongly recommend your party is level 17 before attempting. I walked in, like, after spending 20 minutes searching for a thing, like a hidden treasure kind of thing on the map. I found the door of it kind of hidden, tucked around a side of a mountain, and there was a little pop-up that came and it said, very dangerous above it. We recommend you be X, Y, and Z level. And I was like, here's where it's going to come. If I want to do this thing, if I want to do this mission, I have to go grind the hell out of these characters, or I'm going to have to spend money on adding party members that are a higher level.
Have you been getting those? You get like, I don't know what they are. They're like letters or little scrolls or something that level up your dudes.
Yes, yeah, I gotta get it. You can get a ton from the the treasure chests hidden in the world. You get quite a bit of those, but it's, again, you have to work for that stuff. And if you're, if you want a little more efficiency, if you don't want to grind away at this game, you're gonna have to probably spend some money.
Why wouldn't you want to just grind away at the game? Are you just not? Are you saying you're not enjoying the game for some reason?
No, I am kind of enjoying it. And I think that's kind of what is also sort of surprising about it. And it's kind of why I'm also kind of considering maybe I will spend a little money on this. Because I find it kind of oddly charming. I think it's a really well-made game. I think the gacha stuff is not super oppressive or ominous. It doesn't really get in the way of you being able to have a lot of fun with it. I think it's gorgeous. I mean, the world is beautiful. The characters
it looks amazing.
Yeah, beautifully rendered. It almost sort of kind of, I look at screenshots of it in reviews, and I keep reading these sort of like 10 things I wish I knew before I started playing Genshin Impact. It was one of the articles I read today, and the screenshots that they sort of share in that, it looks very much kind of like the line art from Persona 5. So it's this kind of like halfway between Breath of the Wild and Persona, which, like, for me, as far as anime goes, that's probably my sweet spot. It's just an absolutely gorgeous game. And I like Breath of the Wild, so why would I not want a thing that does more of Breath of the Wild?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with that aspect of it at all. I mean, it's a little sketchy, right? So they brought so much of Breath of the Wild into this, but it looks amazing. I really love the just the environments and the effects and everything, as much as they are just very directly lifted from Breath of the Wild. It looks great. Yeah, I feel like maybe the combat is better in this than it was in Breath of the Wild.
Okay, so hot take. I don't disagree with you, actually.
Okay, I mean, look, your weapons don't break. That's already 100% better.
Yeah. But you are going to be saddled to a sword you don't love for a little while.
Sure.
Unless you're willing to spend money or blow through some of your casino pulls to pull up a new one on the slot machine.
I mean, yeah, that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking, like, this is so much more of an action game than any of the Zelda games ever, like, aspire to be, I think. Yeah. Like, the combat in those games feels just kind of intentionally just serviceable. Like, it's there, and there's some things you can do with it, but I don't think anybody would, I don't know, if you made a game that was only, like, the combat shrines in Breath of the Wild, I don't know how popular that would be. And I don't know if the combat in this is, like, kind of along the same lines. It's not amazing, but it is so much more enjoyable and just more engaging than Breath of the Wild, I think.
It needs that parry that you had in Breath of the Wild. That's the thing that I feel like is missing from every combat encounter I get into, is I wish there was a way for me to, like, see the wind up on another enemy's attack and bounce their sword off of mine and open them up for a counter. And there's a dodge. You can sort of zip out of the way.
Yeah, it does feel like it's a lot of just like whack 'em, dodge out of the way, and then avoid, zoom back in and repeat.
Yeah.
So I wonder if there's like more depth later on.
I don't know. I'm not sure. One of the things that I kind of like, at least in the early hours that I've now that I have a party of 4, and I'm starting to take on kind of higher level encounters, is I really dig the way that it handles the elemental stuff in Genshin Impact, where, geez, it almost sort of feels a little bit like kind of the combat in, Fire Emblem, there you go, where you need a bow and arrow to take down flying enemies, and you need a sword to counter an axe, and if you have an axe, you can only take on X, Y, and Z. So you have to be sort of deliberate about who you bring into your party based on their kind of skill set and their elemental affinity in Genshin Impact, because so many of the enemies that you're going to encounter in the world have a freeze ability, or have a fire ability, or have an electrical ability. So you want to make sure you bring somebody with you into that adventure that is a counter to that.
Yeah. And in your case, just hope one of your 4 characters is able to deal with all those things.
Right. And you have to be very comfortable with switching from character to character to character on the fly, because you're going to encounter different people who are going to come at you with different abilities in the course of a single battle. And there's cooldowns on everything. So you're going to use your big kind of electrical attack from one of your characters to sort of stun everybody briefly, and then you hit the D-pad button to switch over to your swordsman, and then go in and slice and dice them for a little bit while they're all frozen in place. So yeah, again, I think it sort of hinges on you kind of learning the intricacies of that and being a little more kind of quick thinking and on the fly than some of the more kind of patient and methodical kind of combat encounters in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah. So far, none of the encounters I run into have felt demanding enough that, my typical just slash and dodge strategy didn't prevail every single time. But I have run into a few where I'm just like, this would probably be going a lot faster if I started exploiting these elemental weaknesses and all that stuff.
And those are real fun too. There's like the sort of the on-screen effects of what those look like and how they play out are real cool.
Yeah. Oh, it looks so good. It's ridiculous. I think like it sounds silly, but the visuals in this go a long way into just keeping me engrossed with it. I don't think this like the story is definitely not doing it. That feels incredibly generic, but man, it's just
and it feels like a bit of an afterthought too. You get sort of the big opening, sort of like, here's what this game is about, and then there's no reference to that for hours. Yeah.
Yeah, it does feel like, I don't know, I've played mobile games where it's definitely more centered around like the gameplay or the gacha and just pulling characters or whatever, and then there's just some kind of story just loosely tying everything together. This really gives me the same feeling that is kind of the approach, which is like, it's a little disappointing because I would love it if this just had a really terrific story that was, keeping me hooked, but doesn't seem to be, at least not so far.
Yeah. I don't, I'm not getting any service on that at all at the point that I'm at either, and I'm probably a few hours ahead of you. He really is. Again, in your sort of interactions with everybody in the overworld, you have, a number of menu options that are sort of like, can I buy this thing from you? Or can you tell me some more information on this other quest that I'm on? But one of those options is almost always, have you seen this person? And you are looking for a missing person. That's the hook in the game. Yeah. And that's the conceit from the opening cinematic. But you can choose not to search for this missing person. And there's nothing else that I've encountered in any of the missions or anything like that thus far that even alludes to that happening. So, it's a bit of an oversight.
I wonder how that's going to play out. Like, I wonder if the campaign ends at some point, or if it's just going to stretch on forever and ever.
If they're approaching it like a service thing where they keep plugging content into it.
Yeah. Because speaking of gacha games, I still continue to play Dragalia Lost for some reason. I enjoy it. It's interesting, but
you've really stuck with it. That's been a while now.
I play all the time. It's actually the second anniversary going on right now. It's great.
Oh wow.
The story that it's definitely better than the whatever's going on in Genshin Impact, but it just keeps dragging on forever. Like, not to give anything away, but in the very beginning of the game, or like one or two chapters into the main story, there's like this critical thing that happens, and you spend the rest of the early chapters trying to resolve this thing, and it's like 2 years later, and we still haven't fixed it yet. Still working on it, and I'm just like, oh my god, is this just gonna be one of those like anime things where they just never do the thing that's always just like, tune in next week to maybe they'll do it. Maybe they're just like getting a little bit closer this time, and it's a nightmare. So I can't I wonder if that is, it's not how I expected Genshin Impact to go, because it's the way it sets it up. There's just like a clear conflict, like, oh, this town is being terrorized, and also the missing person we gotta find, and those seem like, oh, obviously by the end of this campaign we will have killed that thing and found the other thing, and everything will be good. But it just dawned on me as we've been talking about it, like, oh, what if that just never happens ever?
I can tell you, you'll get resolution on one of those pretty quickly and not on the other.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah. Great.
It's Yeah, it continues to be surprising. I was prepared to be sort of dismissive of it. I was prepared to sort of play for a few hours and just be completely annoyed with it, asking me to put in my credit card number over and over, that I was just going to fly away from this thing pretty fast. But I have spent a number of hours with it so far. I think the cash grab elements of it are pretty subtle. And I think the game that it's sort of like wrapped around is surprisingly entertaining and fun.
Interesting. Okay. Huh. I was expecting you to just like turn the thing off as soon as Paimon opened her mouth and talked to you.
Paimon is such a turnoff character. Yeah. This is your little fairy character that is sort of your the character that you choose to play as. You can choose a female or male protagonist. And you have a sidekick that is a squeaky voiced floating fairy chibi type character, and every time she talks it's just me hammering the button to get through her dialogue as fast as possible. So yeah,
always,
she's
speaks in the third person.
Yeah, she refers to herself as Paimon. Yeah,
it's really good.
Yeah.
She's
yeah,
like a
I don't know if I
big
agree
fairy
with that,
too. I don't really understand. She's like, it looks like, she could just land and be a little kid walking around. She's like a little too big to be a fairy. It's just throwing me. A lot of the stuff in this game, I'm just like, wow, why is it like this and not this other way?
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I think is weird that comes up pretty early in the game is that they're like, oh, we're gonna give you a glider. We'll give you a glider so you can sort of like glide around the map from high vantage points. You can get wind gusts, and this factors into you being able to get around the game quite a bit, a la Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
And it's clearly not a glider. It's a pair of wings. It's like angel wings, like tucked to your back, and they keep calling it a glider. You need to get a glider. You have a glider. Yeah. And I'm like, but no, they're wings. Why don't you just call it wings?
I don't know. Maybe that's just, in this world, that's what they call it.
It's a weird choice.
Yeah. A lot of strange choices in this game.
Yeah.
Just like terminology wise, but,
Yeah. But kind of my take on it, and why I'm thinking maybe I want to spend a little money in this game, is that, I'm having a Breath of the Wild style experience here that I paid $0 for.
Sure.
So, maybe I would kick in a couple of bucks for something to, like, one, pay back the people who made this game with their blood, sweat, and tears.
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
That's
fair.
Yeah. And, and if that makes my experience with the game a little more fun, a little more entertaining, or, God forbid, a little easier, then maybe I would do that too.
Yeah. Maybe you'll just turn into like a gacha monster.
Maybe I will. And that's my fear, is like, does this break video games forever? Like, it was announced today, and we're recording this on October 5th, and I think this game came out on October 1st, if I remember correctly, that in the first kind of 5 days, it made like $50 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's going to, like, other video game developers are going to see that, and we're going to probably see at some point in the near future more AAA production value type video games that are free to play, and they just ask you for money all the time once you get in there.
That's not a new thing. I mean, it's just weird because this is getting so much publicity in the West, I guess, but I'm sure there are like tons of games like this already happening. I mean, there's like Apex, and just name your favorite battle royale. Or arena shooter of the last few years.
We think of it, I think of it in the US anyways, as a Fortnite type of thing. I don't think of it as a Breath of the Wild type of thing.
I mean, it's strange. I guess, there are not a lot of single player games that I can name that are quite in the style like this, that are just completely free to play from the outset. So that could be interesting, yeah. Although you can also, you can team up with people in this, right?
Eventually. There's there are some conditions you have to achieve before you can actually bring other players into your, like, online players into your game. But so you don't get that from the jump. But that exists. Co-op exists in this. Ultimately.
But for the most part, you can play the entire thing single player.
Yep. Yeah, and I have so far.
I am so I've been playing it on PC. I've actually been thinking about moving it over to PS4. Mm-hmm. Because there's some weird aspects to the PC version, like the confirm and cancel buttons, I know this is fascinating, they are swapped on the PC. I think it's just because it's an Asian developed game.
Oh, so do you keep canceling things you intend to confirm?
I just keep hitting the wrong button. And also, I don't know if this is true about the PS4 version, but all the menus you navigate using the analog stick, which is making me insane. Like, that's bad.
Oh, I have run into that on the PS4 as well.
Oh, no.
I keep trying to D-pad it, and no, it only takes the analog.
Ugh. Okay, well, at least they have the correct, like, confirm and cancel, or at least the ones that I'm used to on the PS4.
Mm-hmm.
But then, this is... a very cool thing about it is that all the different versions of it all over the place, you can just play with people on other platforms, right?
Right.
Although it's only limited, like, cross-save, because I think, like, the PC and mobile versions, you can transfer your save back and forth, but then for some reason, just like for the PS4, you can't. So if I were going to start over on PS4, I would actually have to start completely over from the beginning.
Right. Yeah, that is my understanding of that. Sony still doesn't quite understand that and continues to be kind of a bit of a obstructionist about that. But yeah, it's a bummer because there is a Switch version of this in the works, and I'm like, geez, this would be a lot of fun if I could have it on the Switch and kind of sit on the couch and play it or whatever. But if I'm going to sink hours, and I did sink already hours into it on the PS4 version, I want to be able to take that save over to the Switch with me. And at this point, it's just not built to do that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll fix that ever. I wonder how big this is going to get.
They did with Fortnite.
They did eventually, yeah. That was good. Huh. I'm trying to decide how invested I want to get into this. I don't know if it's a lot, because I can already see kind of the same systems that I've run into in Dragalia popping up in this, where they're like, oh yeah, I've been reading people's reports who have spent a lot more time playing this than I have, and they're already talking about, I've leveled up my characters and like promoted them, and I've got my 4-star weapon, I'm working on getting the 5-star, and I'm just like, oh, this sounds very familiar. This is already like the same formula that Dragalia Lost has got going on, and a few of the other mobile gacha games that I've played. So I don't know, like, I definitely don't have, I don't think I have the time to just add another game or just get into another game to that extent as I have with something like Dragalia. But if it's not really necessary to go all in on the gacha stuff in this to enjoy the exploration and all the other stuff going on in this game, then maybe that's fine. Maybe I don't need to get that into it.
Yeah. I think initially that's fine. I think you probably would get 10 or so hours of enjoyment out of just kind of running around and whacking things with your sword before the paywall kind of gets in the way. Mm-hmm. But yeah, whether or not you consider that to be a sunk cost is your mileage may vary, I guess.
Yeah. The other thing, and I don't want to keep just adding stuff onto this, but I just don't find the traversal to be quite as good as it felt in Breath of the Wild. For like somehow, I don't know how they just nailed it with Breath of the Wild. Like the weight of the character, like climbing over stuff, and just the way Link moved in that game was so just compelling. And you could like pull yourself over the edge of a cliff and on the top of a mountain and like gaze over the valley in front of you and think like, oh man, I want to like go down there. I want to check out what's going on over there. And I can't wait to just like trudge across this massive plain to, explore the rest of this world. And, as good as Genshin Impact looks, I just haven't had quite the same, hasn't had quite the same pull on me as Breath of the Wild did.
Yeah. Just
mechanically, it doesn't feel quite as good.
I would agree with that. Yeah. I keep fast traveling in Genshin Impact because I'm not interested in, and it would probably help me with some of my leveling issues, but I'm not interested in sort of walking everywhere on foot. And it does feel like I sort of do these like multi-step missions where it's sort of like, go here and talk to this guy. And he's like, okay, we'll go to this other place and do this other thing. And the little icon for it will pop up and it's sort of like 987 meters away. And it's this sort of little glowing thing as far as you can possibly see on the map. And I'm like, oh, I got to walk all the way over there. And like, I never felt that way about Breath of the Wild. Like I was always happy to, walk on my own feet or pick up a horse somewhere and gallop over. I don't think I ever fast traveled in that game. So,
oh wow, okay,
yeah,
it was so fun to like get distracted and like explore off in some weird direction that was totally the opposite direction of where you're supposed to be going in Breath of the Wild, just because the world was so interesting. And it's not really like that hasn't happened to me in this yet. And I wonder if it's because I've been trying to just get through the prologue and like get the party together so I can really understand how the game is supposed to work. So I've been just really trying to stay focused on the critical objectives.
Yeah. The prologue is a bit of a slog. I feel like it's not the best first impression for this game. It is a little too dense and it does throw a lot at you, and none of it is super compelling initially. So I'm like, they probably could have fine-tuned these opening kind of couple hours a little bit to make it a little swifter, because it does feel not great. But once you get out of that cycle and you kind of have a couple corners of the map open, and you're running around kind of doing objectives and taking on missions and talking to villagers and stuff, that stuff starts to feel fun and you start to sort of see the speed of it.
Interesting.
Yeah. In my head, I keep going, why I should just be playing Dragon Quest XI.
Yeah, I had kind of the same thought, just like running around that main city, because I'm just like, oh, this is gorgeous. Why don't other games look as good as this does? And I'm like, oh, Dragon Quest kind of looks.
There is one, yeah, that's supposed to be quite good, and I've only put 20 hours in. Yeah. Yep.
Man, it's gonna make me real sad when Breath of the Wild 2 comes out, and it like doesn't look as good as this, and also just runs at like 20 frames a second.
Yeah. Still want to play that game though.
Yeah, I'll definitely play it for sure.
All right. Well, interesting. I was wondering where you were going to come in on this. So it's cool that we're both like, oh, there's a pretty fun video game here.
Yeah, I'm just like, I mean, it's free, so it's not like I've put some investment into this already.
Right.
And I can just come back to it anytime, because it's not like an MMO that's constantly changing or anything. But, like you're saying, like maybe I should just play Dragon Quest XI. There's a whole bunch of RPGs that came out that I want to check out as well, that I'm sure are a little more, I don't know, a little less, don't even know what I'm trying to say with this game. It feel a little less generic, I suppose.
Yeah.
Something with a real story, unless it really picks up after the first hour or so.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sort of approaching Genshin pretty cynically too, because I keep waiting for it to like ask me for money. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So like every door I walk into, or every character I bounce off of, I keep waiting for it to sort of like be a unsubtle cash grab. And in Dragon Quest XI, once you buy the game, it's never going to ask you for money ever again. So you can just sort of I can sort of enjoy that without fear of running into a wall where I can't get past it without spending money.
I don't know if you'll run into like just an explicit wall, like somebody says, you have to have this character or whoever to progress. I've heard it's pretty good about that, and that a lot of the like paid stuff is optional. But I don't know, maybe there's just occasionally it will just give you one of the advanced like gacha characters to play around with, right? And you can kind of see how their fighting style works. And
yes, you get a little appetizer.
Yeah. Which again is, optional, but depends just how invested you are in playing as one of those characters.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like, I wonder how much they will just continue to dole out the summoning currency, because, man, I have probably not spent any money on Dragalia Lost in like a year, which I think about frequently and kind of feel bad about because I play it all the time. But that game is really good about just giving you stuff to, not be summoning all the time. But if a character pops up and you're like, ooh, I want that one, you can kind of do it without spending too much.
Yeah. I'm not feeling antsy about my party just yet. I think they're pretty serviceable and I can hold my own in combat. So yeah, I've not sort of felt the inclination to want to see what else is out there. I know that you get like a number of slots where you can have sort of like custom parties that you can kind of assemble, and we'll remember them. And I just have tons of empty slots at this point because I just have the same 4 characters. Yeah. So
different arrangements of the same 4 characters over and over. Yeah.
Boy, girl, boy, girl, boy. Yeah, right. So I'm not feeling any angst thus far about about not sort of having a team that is equipped to do what I want it to do. But like I said, I do keep running into things where it says, we recommend you be level X to do this. Or it just sort of absolutely shuts you out because you're not that level.
It's probably a good thing. You probably just get frustrated.
Probably, yeah, yes, yeah. I mean, I'm relatively low in terms of frustration so far. Like, there's not a lot of deaths. Nothing feels very cheap. Like, the stuff that I've kind of come up against, and I've had a couple of big boss encounters and stuff like that, have all felt like kind of fun and well-earned battles. So it's definitely not... Well, I mean, there's probably an element of pay to win in it if you want to approach it that way. But if you're willing to kind of, put the work into it and beat up the bad guys on your own, then it still feels like you're earning it a little bit.
Okay, well, that's good.
Yeah.
Maybe I should just stop being so cynical about this thing and allow for the possibility that maybe somebody made a good game. It's just free.
Maybe, yeah.
I'm probably gonna end up landing somewhere in the middle of the spectrum. But so I'm pleasantly surprised, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Well, I guess we should wrap this thing up, huh?
Yeah. I gotta go talk to Paimon a little bit.
If you need any more video game hangover, what's it called? Video game hangover. That's what the name of the show is. If you need any more of that in your brain, you should follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/VGHangover. You can always get show notes, links, and tell us what you thought about this episode at VGHangover.com. We would encourage you to join our Discord. You can get the link to that over at VGHangover.com as well.
Do it. And see you in there.
Yeah. Last but not least, please subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Pocket Casts. What else? I don't know what else we're on. All of those things.
I got Stitcher. I signed a Stitcher. Oh, yeah, that thing.
Yeah. Tell your friends about the show, too. That's probably even more important than all that other stuff. We will happily take your downloads and subscriptions, but help get the word out about this thing. It helps us immensely.
Paimon says, tell all your friends about the show, because that would make Paimon very happy.
Correct. Paimon.
Paimon.
Now in your best squeaky voice.
No, not happening. Sorry.
No, you don't have one of
those. Not tonight. We want to give thanks again to Lemonectric for our intro and outro music this week. We highly recommend you head over to lemonectric.bandcamp.com and check out the rest of the stuff. Real good. Paimon would approve. I don't know what I'm doing at this point.
All right, we'll be back next week. Until then, this is Randy Dickinson.
This is DJ Ross.
Thanks for listening to Video Game Hangover. Goodbye.
Good night.
See ya.